Welcome to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, where we discuss all things political, bringing you the top stories locally, nationally, and from around the world. I'm Ruben Abati, and This Day Live begins now. I'd like to welcome today's panelists, Professor Bola Akinteruwa, Director General, Bolitag Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, and Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director, Enough is Enough. Yemi and Prof, good to have you this week.
Good afternoon. On
This Day Live, the Sunday talk show. We begin with the latest situation report on the coronavirus pandemic in Nigeria. 10 new cases of the coronavirus disease, COVID-19, was confirmed as at 11:15 a.m. local time in Nigeria, making it a total of 224 confirmed coronavirus cases and 5 deaths in Nigeria, while 27 people in the country have been discharged. A breakdown of the new cases shows that there are 115 in Lagos, 45 in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, 20 in Osun State, 9 each in Oyo and Edo states, 6 in Bauchi, 5 in Akwa Ibom, 4 each in Ogun and Kaduna states, 2 each in Enugu and Ekiti states, and 1 each in Ondo, Rivers, and Benue States. Well, the numbers continue to rise. And as we have been told, we are likely to even have higher numbers as the days go by and as government succeeds in tracing the various contacts that these affected persons may have had. But on the other hand, we've had 27 persons who have been successfully treated and discharged. One of them was discharged this morning, even if we have had up to about 5 deaths. But we see a lot of activity across the country, even in states that have not recorded more than just a case. All of them, all the governors, all the health authorities in an unusual state of alert. What do you think?
Well, I mean, for me, yes. Well, 2 things of concern, I'd say. I think one, we talk about the confirmed cases, but we still don't have a good sense of how many people we're actually testing. So the extent to which you understand the cases that we have is relative to how many people have been tested. Because until you're tested, there's no way to know if you're positive or not. But also, as we've seen, is that very luckily, compared to other parts of the world, our cases are mild, if I want to use that word, and those who have tested positive, some of them have been asymptomatic. So not everyone, but examples are Governor Makinde and Governor Rufai, who said they're feeling fine, but they went
and the governor of Bauchi State, who says he has now tested negative after 2 further tests. But what do you think of the lockdown? Do you think it's working?
So that's where I'm going. So you have that, and if we look at those numbers as absolutes, I think they're quite misleading because we really don't have a sense of how many people we're testing. And 3 incidents that happened over the last 3 days, for me, point to that. So the issue of a gentleman who died at Luth, who didn't disclose his travel history, was then put in a normal ward, and it was until literally the point of death that it was found out that he had traveled abroad and then was subsequently tested. Secondly was the case of Osun State, where 6 people were alleged to have escaped. The states issued a statement that it was only 1, but at least from our sources that we're partners in Osun, the narrative is that 6 people did escape. But by the time the state was responding, 5 people had been found and returned, and only 1 person was still at large, in a sense. And then there's the ongoing case at University of Ilorin around a gentleman who traveled from England, came back, started exhibiting symptoms. His friend asked him to come to Ilorin, and he wasn't tested, but given the symptoms and the dynamics of what happened, the state is saying it might have been a COVID case. So we have those issues in areas where actually just appealing to health workers. In Enugu, I think we talked about it last week, health workers were protesting working because they didn't have sufficient equipment.
Well, this week, health workers in Plateau State are also protesting.
Exactly. So for me, that's the context, before we even get to lockdown, that's the context of the basis of the things that need to be working. We need to be clear about communication. We need to be clear about getting the people who are on the front lines the equipment they need to work. Because if people, for whatever reason, either stigma or fear of whatever it is, don't come forward, our health workers are not comfortable to do the work, then lockdown or no lockdown, we're going to have a bigger problem on our hands.
You're quite correct, Prof. Well, maybe you will talk about the lockdown and then the indication that the COVID-19 cases that die, their corpses will not be released to their families. I think it was the Minister of Information that said that. Do you think that will encourage people to seek help if they begin to exhibit symptoms, if they know that in the event of death, their bodies will never go back to their families for proper burial rites?
Yemi talked about a better situation in Nigeria, that our situation is a little bit mild when compared with the situational reality in the world. I think we should put the adjective visible. All right? What is happening in Nigeria is that people that have been infected actually wait until they have actually felt, seen the symptoms before going to report themselves. It is not that the government of Nigeria has succeeded in actually identifying those who have been infected. So in this case, considering our situation to be mild may be far from the situational reality on the ground. Secondly, in terms of lockdown, there is the need to investigate the nexus between the lockdown and the spread. There's nothing to suggest that the lockdown in itself is helping to flatten, the curve. There's nothing to suggest that. The first reason to look at is Nigerians, by their nature, we are not law-abiding. We are not. When I was coming, I tried to drive slowly and
observe,
to look at, left and right, to see what's happening. You see people trekking. I saw people on the Third Mainland Bridge trekking.
Yes.
Some people are going to work, though.
No, but look, you see, the idea of lockdown is to prevent people from going out. The methodology, as explained and as understood, is clear. If you are at home for a period of 14 days, the likelihood of the symptoms, if you do have it, will have shown. Commonly, it is believed that in 5 days, you should have had the symptoms. Worldwide, the average number of days is 5 days. But at its extreme, at the end of 14 days, under normal circumstances, you have seen the symptoms. If
you could also be asymptomatic,
precisely.
and then there will be no indication of symptoms.
No, but you see here, people go out, and then it makes life difficult. The experiment difficult for government.
Rob, didn't you also see young people playing football?
Yes, of course.
Freely on the streets.
Precisely.
But it's very difficult, Prof. And I'll say that on 2 points. People work in supermarkets. They said essential services, people should be able to buy food. Some people need to get to those offices. As part of Mr. Governor's announcement, I didn't hear any provision for transportation. So people walking, some buses being on the road for
No, you don't have to trek from Yaba to Victoria Island to come and do what? To come and buy food?
What if that's where I work?
No, but there is...
And I have a job.
Look, government has done well by reviewing the lockdown rules to say from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., you can go to markets where you have these perishable goods and buy. All right? Restaurants, they say you can sell food, but
but she's talking about the failure to make transportation arrangements for persons who have been exempted. People involved in the petroleum industry, for example, people working in pharmacies, journalists who need to get to their studios.
Ruben.
Maybe the point, Yemi, should be that we should call on employers to make special arrangements for their workers.
In collaboration with the Lagos State, because they have to give them passes. Exactly.
So that if there are people living in Ikeja, for example, and they work in a pharmacy in Ikoyi, then the employers should send a bus and use that to get them to work.
That does not remove of the fact that we are not, by nature, law-abiding. Please, let me give you a very concrete case. We have this telecommunications exemption was there.
Yes.
In my place, in our estate, I had to challenge. I put it in black and white in my column today to say, look, I challenge this company. Why are you not complying with President Muhammadu Buhari's order on this? You are supposed to be at home. The explanation given to me was that telecommunication people, they are exempted. And I say, no. We need to understand that particular provision. President Buhari says, if you have every reason to justify your inability to work from home, okay, you can go to your office. But it doesn't say you should go to residential houses like our own to come and be working. Now they are trying.
What kind of work will telecom officials come to do in your house?
Precisely, they are laying the foundation for internet. They are saying, look, they are promoting their business to say you pay 12,000 naira per month, you have this facility. But I challenge them to say no.
This doesn't amount to essential service.
Exactly.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Now, this one misinterpretation of the essential services there. They say, well, you are working with the press, telecommunications, they can move out. And I say, no, you cannot come to our place. The most unfortunate aspect of it, my own neighbors, immediate neighbors at home, they were pleading to say, well, they should do so. This is why I hold the impression that, look, how will you expect this type of lockdown?
Prof, you just reported your neighbors to the whole world.
Yes, of course, what is wrong with it?
As law-abiding, as lawless neighbors.
Exactly.
You see, let me tell you, Nigeria can never make it if we do not learn how to accept rule of law. We need to respect. People can be against the person of Muhammadu Buhari, but this time, this man, who is on record to have been fighting against indiscipline, who identified corruption and indiscipline as the bane of Nigerian society. Now,
on that note, Prof, we need to take a short break. It's time now for a short break here on This Day Live, the Sunday talk show. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Still with me in the studio, I have Professor Bola Akintenwa, Director General, Bolitag Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, and Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director, Enough is Enough. Well, we'll come back to our discussions around COVID-19 in Nigeria, but let's go quickly to France, where two doctors stirred the honest nest. But however, a French doctor, one of them, has apologized for suggesting a possible treatment of COVID-19 be tested in Africa. His apologies came after the remarks sparked an outcry on social media. Myra, the head of the intensive care unit at the Cochin Hospital in Paris, made the comments on Wednesday during an interview on French television channel RCI with the research director of France's National Health Institute. The research director, Camille Locht, was discussing the BCG tuberculosis vaccine, which is being trialed in several European countries and Australia against COVID-19, the respiratory disease caused by the new coronavirus. Well, this caused an outrage. Groups in France have accused the two doctors of racism. The broadcast station LCI has been reported to CSA, the ethics monitoring agency in France. In Morocco, some doctors are threatening to go to court to charge both Myra and Locht to court for racial defamation. But in any case, one of the doctors, Jean-Paul Myra, has apologized, and he says that this is a case of erroneous interpretation, and that on no account whatsoever would they put down a whole continent. But we do know that he and his colleague also made the point that Africans are very resistant because they don't wear face masks, they don't have any protection, and they tend to resist diseases. And Africa will be the right place to come and test any kind of vaccine. The BCG, in this case, which have been used previously to treat tuberculosis. So what do you think? Do you think that his apology is enough, or we should still expect another apology from Camille Locht? Prof, I'll start with you. You've been a Frenchman by association.
You see, I look at the issue differently. First of all, at the level of epidemiology and pharmacology, if you look at the statement made by the first doctor, Jean-Paul Mera, who is the head of the resuscitation center of the Cochin Hospital. If you take a closer look at his speech, you know, he started by saying, if I were to be provocative.
Yes, he said that.
All right?
And he achieved his objective. He provoked.
Precisely.
He provoked the whole
continent.
The next thing, I try to quote his something. If I can be provocative, shouldn't we do this study in Africa where there are no masks, no treatment, no reanimation? A little bit as is done in some AIDS studies, where they use prostitutes to test some things because they know they are highly exposed and they don't protect themselves. What do you think? That was his words. Now, when you look at this, and you rightly pointed this out, in Africa, black people generally, they have stronger antibodies, you know, and in this case, they appear to have more oxygenated blood. And they now believe that in Africa, if we do carry out this study, then that may inform the possibility of knowing how to strengthen whatever contents of the vaccine, of the tablets they are going to give. So objectively speaking, it means that African people will be a determinant of the content of whatever they are going to come out with. It's an admission of the fact that non-black people, non-Africans, all right, cannot be used as a good case. The Minister of Defense, Madame Florence, made it clear just 2-3 days ago that there are 600 members of the French military, all right, already infected. It is not that they don't have people to be used, but if we look at it from perspective of objectivity of purpose, if they don't have any ulterior motive, I wouldn't see anything wrong in looking at the more hardened people of the world, people whose built, you know, physique would be good. But geopolitically speaking, you know, the question we should ask, especially if you look at the answer of Dr. Camille. Now, Camille said there has been a request which is out.
That request is from Australia.
I'm coming. I am aware. You know, the issue is that we easily forget the fact that in the late 1950s and 1960, February, April, December 1960, the French carried out its atomic test. Where? In the Reagan area of the Saharan Desert. So Africa has always been the testing ground for all these...
and Didier Drogba says Africa is not a testing laboratory.
Indeed.
We may have been a testing laboratory in the past, not any longer, not anymore.
No, but our Commissioner for External Affairs, Ariku, okay, under General Gowon, he made it clear that Africa should no longer be a source for raw materials and for testing of development projects in Europe.
Anyway, Yemi, let me come to Yemi, Prof. Now, Yemi, what is your take? Because some conspiracy theories have developed around this controversy. Now, many Africans, or let me be specific, Nigerians, are even saying we should no longer take test kits from China. We should not allow Chinese doctors to come into Nigeria because they are suspicious. They are now saying, look, it looks like there is a Western attempt to turn Africa into a testing ground for COVID-19. And can you really blame them when you consider that for about 40 years in the US, black people, the Negro male, was used to test their drugs for syphilis. And of course, there is this racial tension. There is a race dimension to COVID-19, clearly.
I think, one, there's a race dimension, and I think, two, there's also a leadership dimension. I think part of the underlying outcry is a sort of recognition of feeling that the leaders on the continent will not protect their citizens. So to your point, you said that Arepo said this, our commissioner said this under Gowon. So we're talking in the 70s. Yes. Fast forward, we're now in 2020.
Yeah, the same thing.
And we're still having this conversation. And so there's the sense that, yes, there's one thing to be tested, but we're still a source of raw materials. I mean, we're talking about logging. I mean, I watched a program a couple of days ago that 1 million trees worth about $300 million, rosewood trees, were being illegally mined out of Senegal and the Gambia. And with the complicit nature of the government, there are laws in place to protect it, but they're not. So people are mining the logs and taking it out, and China is the largest receiver of it because it's literally going to China. So I think we shouldn't underestimate how nationals feel about their country when you hear these things. And it feeds into, one, things that we know have been done in the past.
Your point is very beautiful.
Things that you know have been done in the past, and things that you know that under the right conditions, your country's leaders will in effect allow. So the uproar around it is also, for me, a statement of a lack of trust in the leadership of African countries.
You see, when Dr. Kamil said there has been a request, the issue is this. We need to ask, the request is from which country? We are talking about Australia. But you see, the issue is that at the end of the day, the French are very comfortable with the fact that if there will be tests to be carried out, are they going to carry out the test on Nigerian patients? Start telling us the first target, the first area of concern will be the Francophone countries.
Of course.
It's not going to be the Arabophones or the Lusophones. No. Certainly not. It will be the Francophones.
Well, just to support your point, the health minister of the Democratic Republic of Congo has already said that they don't mind, Congo being used as a laboratory for the test. But the Minister of Health in Senegal has said no, that African ministers of health will hold a meeting and that Africa as a whole will take a decision whether Africa should be the laboratory for COVID-19 vaccine tests. Yeah. So that's an update for you there.
And so it shows you already, if we're talking about on the continent, one country is willing and able and welcoming, another country is saying no. But again,
please, look, you need to understand Francophone politics. Look,
countries are also sovereign. So you're going to say Francophone politics.
You see, the beauty of it all is that when we carry out analysis of tests like this, we need to understand the dualist character of foreign policies of many countries. All right? Please, before the Ministry of Integration, which used to handle the colonies in France, was cancelled, and now the affairs merged with the Quai d'Orsay, the foreign ministry. What happens? How do you explain the fact that you have the Élysée and the Quai d'Orsay, the foreign ministry? One will be arguing along A, the other one will also be arguing along B, but at the tail end of it, the two of them are actually preparing to travel along the same destination.
To arrive at sea.
So please, you see, we understand the technical aspects of how to present arguments. The beauty of French diplomacy is simply that, look,
is that it is imperial when it comes to Africa.
Yeah, of course. Well,
No, but we're talking about France, though. No, you are talking about France. So are you saying that Congo and Senegal are now implementing that same, speaking from both sides of the mouth?
Please.
No, it's a question, sir. I don't know.
will
I'm just
explain.
asking.
I don't want to say yes and no. I want to give you the meat.
We don't have time for
I will give you the meat.
You may have to continue that conversation.
Of Senegal.
You may have to continue that conversation maybe after the program. For now, we need to take another short break here on This Day Live, this Sunday talk show. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Come back to This Day Live, this Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Still with me, I have Professor Bola Akintenwa, Director General, Bolitag Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, and Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director in Office Enough. Now let's come back to Nigeria after that exciting conversation about France and its relationship with Africa. Now, a resident of Warri, Delta State, Nigeria, known as Joseph Peso, was reportedly shot dead by a soldier enforcing the lockdown in the state. Although there is no confirmed case of COVID-19 as at the time in Delta, Ifeanyi Okowa, the governor, ordered a lockdown across the state for 14 days, which started from April 1. A team of soldiers was said to have stopped Pesu, a father of two, around the Ubuwangwe area of the town on Thursday morning, but he allegedly refused. The soldiers were said to have chased the deceased and shot him on the spot. In a protest, youths from the community blocked the expressway and burnt tires. Meanwhile, reactions have trailed the killing. Among those who have reacted are the Deputy Senate President, Ovie Omo Agege, who condemned the killing and described it as extrajudicial. Also, the Minister of State for Niger Delta Affairs, Festus Keyamo, described the killing as barbaric and called for a thorough investigation. Indeed, barbaric. And this is one of the fallouts of the lockdown that we have seen. The high-handedness on the part of the security agents. This gentleman was shot thrice. That looks like premeditated murder, just because he probably did not stop at a lockdown checkpoint. But of course, we're told that the sergeant, the officer who did this, has been apprehended. It's also the case of two soldiers in Lagos, members of the Night Brigade, who got to hear the story of what happened in Warri, and they recorded a video which went viral on social media, in which they were saying that they will rape women in Warri and infect them with HIV. Now, the Army headquarters has since reported that these two gentlemen, well, I don't want to call them two gentlemen, these two rogue soldiers have since been apprehended, and that they will be made to face the full wrath of the law. Now, a third example to show that there is a pattern of behavior on the part of the security agencies. In Akwa Ibom State, in Uyo, a surgeon, Dr. David Daniel Edet, working with the University of Uyo Teaching Hospital, was stopped at a checkpoint by a policeman, a sergeant in this case too, and he identified himself, reportedly. Then there was an altercation between them because the policeman did not want him to go. And he said, look, I'm a surgeon. I have work to do. Whatever happened at the end of the day, he received the beating of his life, and his hand was fractured by this policeman. At the moment, resident doctors at the University of Uyo Teaching Hospital are threatening to down tools if policemen will not allow them to do their job. At a time when we need
all of them,
medical officials to be in the front lines, to hear that doctors are being beaten by policemen at checkpoints, I think is quite frightening.
You see, Ruben, earlier on I made the point that we are a lawless society, that we are generally by nature not law-abiding. And the cases you have just given, they point clearly to that observation. You see, if you look at the report that I read concerning Pesos, he was driving in a Camry saloon car. The car does not have any matriculation number.
You mean plate number, registration number?
Yes.
Registration number.
Registration number. It doesn't have. Now he was flat down. Instead of stopping, he raised off. He accelerated at a higher velocity. Now they have to chase him. He got to a point, probably recognizing that, look, there is no any other way of escaping. He parked on the main road and tried to escape into the bush. He said by the time he escaped into the bush that he was shot. Now,
Prof, are you justifying his assassination?
that is not the issue. The point I'm trying to make is that, look, while we are looking at the attitudinal disposition of the soldier, the people who killed, we must also investigate our attitudinal, disposition too, we as civilians. For instance, we easily forget that policemen, soldiers that are checkpoints, they are there for so many hours. The conditions of work are very inclement. They are most likely to be very, very aggressive.
So again, I'll ask what Dr. Abati just said. Are you justifying his murder?
I am not justifying.
So what are you trying to explain, sir?
The point I'm now trying to say is that, look.
Could he not have been arrested?
Could he not have been shot in the leg? The point is to stop him from moving. Do you shoot
I
to
am
kill?
saying that the report says, for instance, they shot at the rear right tire, all right, to compel him to sit down.
But you have already but you just said, sir, that they shot him when he was running to the bush. So what does shooting the right
No, that's
right
what I'm coming to. You see, I am positing here that, one major rationale behind the non-developmentalist attitude in Nigeria is simply because both the governed and the governor, we are not complying with the rules.
And the greater responsibility,
for instance,
lies on the governor to comply.
If he had stopped when he was flagged down, there wouldn't have been a situation of a hot pursuit.
Prof,
Sir,
I get your point.
No, sorry, sir. But there are also people who get killed who are not moving.
Like Dr. Edet.
Exactly.
Are
you justifying Dr. Edet's
I'm not even
having his arm
I'm not justifying any one of them.
But you're spending a lot of time explaining why we should understand why the police soldier would shoot him.
See,
that's what you just did,
The issue is that you cannot take if you have not been given. Is you give and take, then you take and give. The issue now is that
the death penalty cannot be a solution.
At all.
No, it shouldn't be.
Especially with people who have the instruments of the state to enforce law and order.
Persons should have been arrested rather than shooting.
Excellent.
But since it was a situation of hot pursuit and he's running to the bush,
shoot his leg so he stops running.
See, Prof, we don't know what the exact story is. Because in any of these cases, there will be different versions.
Exactly.
So
that's why I said
Pesu is not here to give his own side of the story.
Precisely. That's why I've said the story I read.
Which is why, so sorry, sir.
Which may be just one version of it.
Just one version.
Which is not only maybe, it is. And sorry, sir, and I would interrupt here because I think it's also very clear. Again, in the context of what I raised earlier, when you have a society where extrajudicial killing is par for course, it's not an exception, it's not a one-off, it's not that it happens sometimes, it happens religiously. So when you have officers, like security agencies, who see that as a tool of, in the sense of trade, then there is a challenge. Because you're right. He parked, let's even say your story is right. He parked, he started running into the bush. You are trained if you want to stop somebody from moving. You don't shoot to kill. You can shoot to immobilize.
Yes.
You can use whatever.
Soldiers don't shoot to demobilize, though. And that's part of the problem.
Exactly. Precisely. So if you, thank you for bringing that up, because if then those are the people we have enforcing, and your MO is not to shoot to demobilize, then we have soldiers in a sense we've licensed soldiers to kill. Exactly.
That they shouldn't be in the public. Yeah. I agree in total with this logic.
I'm sorry, and
but you see,
and to add to that, and I think it's extremely important, especially with the disposition of the Nigerian army, because a couple of days ago on social media, the Nigerian army marked the National Human Rights Commission had issued a press statement where they said if you see any security agents, we should report it. And they gave numbers. 2 civil society organizations turned those numbers into a flyer. And the Nigerian army on their Twitter handle marked them as fake. And there was nothing fake about it because it was the National Human Rights Commission that issued those numbers. So for where I sit, you had already subtly setting a seed of doubt that, oh, don't mind the civil society people, they're just making noise. No. The National Human Rights Commission gave the numbers for both the police, commissioners of police in Lagos, Ogun, I believe FCT, and numbers for themselves, so that if you see any violation, please report. And I think it was actually very highly unethical of the Nigerian army to have done that by in a sense, directly countering what the National Human Rights Commission did.
Well, let us add something that now that the Nigerian army has said that the incident will be investigated, we should insist on full disclosure of the outcome of their investigation. And we must know what happens at the end of the day, because it's a matter of public interest. The same goes for the Nigeria police. The gentleman that gave Dr. Edo a beating of his life and broke his arm. Prof, are you also blaming the surgeon? Because in his own case, he stopped. He explained that he's a surgeon and he was going to work. And I'm not sure that surgeons are not allowed to go to work, even with the lockdown.
Exactly. Well, my position remains constant that, look, if, as Nigerians, we learn how to insist on rules of behavior, when you don't provoke, I think it is Newton who told us in his speech that action and reaction are equal and opposite.
Not in Nigeria.
Yeah, besides, because our own environment is different, because we don't want to comply.
No, not to comply is what I'm saying. I'm saying that without provoking, you can be killed or beaten.
So are you assuming that Dr. Edo also provoked the policeman
that...
No, well, you see,
that's the point.
That broke his arm?
I try to imagine a situation whereby you look at a dialogue between a deaf man and a blind man. When the two of them are not able to communicate, surgeon may be very sophisticated in his knowledge and he will be explaining himself. But the person you are explaining yourself to, what is his level of understanding comparing with you? Would they really understand?
So whose fault is that?
Well, the fault may be systemic.
What is there to explain?
No.
This is my ideal. I'm going to
This is my identity card. I'm going to the hospital. What is there again?
Well, because you understand the meaning, the impact, the implication of being a surgeon. The policeman who is attending to you as a surgeon...
Doesn't know that hospital worker with the ID should be going to work.
What's his level? Look, if you are able to give me the particulars of the policeman, his level of education, his background, his experience, I will be able to appreciate and analyze what
we don't need no, Prof, we don't need analysis here. We only need someone that can understand that this is my ID. University of Uyo Teaching Hospital. I'm going to work. And you don't need to know if I'm a surgeon, if I'm a nurse, if I'm an anesthesiologist.
Deploy to the streets people who can listen, who can easily understand.
Don't say that it's because he doesn't understand. It can just be that he's power drunk, or he was drunk, particularly on that day, or just generally unhappy.
Let me tell you what happened.
It's not a level of education matter.
Let me tell you what happened in Ileoluji when the armed robbers went to the bank.
No, we'll discuss Ileoluji after the program. Let's take a short break now.
Yes, let's come to that.
We'll take a short break here on This Day Live, the Sunday Talk Show. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday Talk Show here on the Arise News Channel. Still with me in the studio, I have Professor Bola Akintenwa, Director General, Bolitag Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, and Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director, Enough is Enough. Now, let's take another interesting topic, in this case, Boko Haram. Troops of the Multinational Joint Task Force from Chad, Nigeria, and Niger Republic have launched a coordinated joint offensive to dislodge and completely rid the Lake Chad of Boko Haram and the Islamic State West African Province, ISWAP. According to the Directorate of Defense Media Operations, troops of Operation Lafiya Dole are equally engaged in simultaneous operations aimed at decimating the insurgents who are escaping the onslaught at the Lake Chad general area. Meanwhile, the Air Task Force of Operation Lafia Dole has ramped up attacks against terrorist locations in Benue State in furtherance of restoring peace and security in the northeast. The latest attacks were at Pariso, a Boko Haram terrorist hideout within the Sambisa forest, after a series of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance reports. Well, I mean, as it is, we're dealing with a health crisis, but at the same time, there's also the unfinished security crisis with the Boko Haram. And since the COVID-19 began its onslaught, there's been an escalation in the attacks by the Boko Haram elements, including the ambush and the killing of over 50 Nigerian soldiers, and the killing also of 92 Chadian soldiers. Hence this attempt by Niger, Nigeria, and Chad to pay more attention to security around that area. We have Operation Lafia Dole. The Chadians have the Wrath of Boma operation, which is personally led by President Idris Deby Itno. And it was interesting to see him in camouflage, you know, and going to the war front himself as a war commander. I think that shows leadership. And by yesterday, they had been able to attack 5 bases of the Boko Haram in Chad and Nigeria. And I've seen pictures of the arms and ammunition seized from the Islamic State insurgents within that area. Yes, quite a large cache of arms. And that Lake Chad area has been declared on the Chadian side a war zone. But I also saw a funny video showing Nigerian soldiers hailing their Chadian counterparts. I take that to be a esprit de corps, not an indication that Nigerian soldiers consider Chadian soldiers superior. But Yemi, I'll come to you.
Well, I think you're quite right, and it's quite an unfortunate place to be. Fighting 2 battles with limited resources, limited attention, and I dare say limited leadership. It makes sense, if I want to use that word quite frankly, for Boko Haram to feel that they can strike at this time and get away with it, just because it's obviously where attention is divided. And as we were talking about earlier, military have been deployed to enforce lockdowns in particular states, so your numbers are reduced. The whole world is talking COVID, so people are not quite paying attention. But I think, again, back to the whole issue of leadership, I think this is an opportunity for President Buhari, who's a former Major General, to show that side of himself, in showing that he, in a sense, even if that's maybe what he wants to focus on. We talked about it last week, division of labor. So maybe he should take the war front in his capacity as Commander-in-Chief and delegate health to his deputy. But I think, again, this is an opportunity for leadership to be at play, because no matter how you dice these things, governed and the governors and the governed, it is a function of leadership, how information is communicated, how people relate to fellow citizens, how people are carried along, and about a nation that is on top of things and is able to manage its resources. And unfortunately, I don't think, even though we're getting credited internationally with the way we're handling COVID-19, I dare say that we could be doing a lot better.
Certainly, and the sovereign integrity of Nigeria is very important. We can't drop the ball on that one. Prof.
I do not, without disagreeing with Yemi, I do not see any big deal about what they call ground offensive there. The multinational joint task force does not appear to me to have any seriousness of purpose.
Even with the presidents in war fatigues.
Let me tell you, the multinational joint task force has been put into existence as far back as 1998. Idea conceived in 1994. It was in 2014, the AU Peace Committee, now with the attacks of Boko Haram, begun by that time, 2003. Today, with the harassment, the unending threats, that was what prompted the idea of now having a specialized arm of the multinational joint task force. They now added, quote and unquote, against Boko Haram. The Joint Commission is for Lake Chad. It's for the Lake Chad Basin Commission. Lake Chad itself is divided into 3 areas. One for Niger, one for Chad, one for Nigeria, basically. Now the issue is that I asked the question, why is it that when we now have 122 troops, soldiers killed, that the idea of now having a ground offensive? Why? You talk about Chad, the leader. Out of the 122, 92 of them are Chadians, killed.
Yeah, I identify them.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Now, 92 killed out of 122. Now, the issue is that in the previous 2 weeks, Boko Haram had not allowed all these people, the members of the task force, to sleep. That's the first issue. Why is it now? Why must you wait? Then Operation Lafia Dole. The Nigeria's operational system put in place to combat. When the operation succeeded in dislodging the Boko Haramis, where did they go to? They went back to what they call Tumbun Fulani area, which is at the border of the Lake Chad and Nigeria. And I've told you that, look, this place is partitioned into areas. Everybody has his own operational assignment to carry out there. Now, they were dislodged. They retrieved to this Tumbun Fulani area. They only now waited until the Boko Haramis came to attack. Why is it that it is only when Boko Haram attacks that you now go back to react?
Well, Prof, according to the Chadians, what happened in the last week on the part of the Chadians and Nigeria and the Nigerians was a retaliatory effort. So it's retaliation for the killing of those 122 soldiers.
Chad disagree with Nigeria on this matter at a point in time, this same Chad, all right? Because either Chad was looking at the position of France in this particular case. That's
Prof, we need to go. The point we can make is that we need to see better cooperation, better collaboration in fighting terrorism, even at this very difficult time that the entire world faces. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati from my entire team here in Lagos. It's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching. See you next week.